I'm Ashlyn and my husband is Zach, and we're traveling A to Z. My husband and I have been traveling all over the world. Join us for our next adventures as we take you through the country of beautiful Egypt.
While in Egypt, we spent multiple days around Cairo. Join us as we show you some of the top things to do in the area, including some of the top archeological sites and museums. Feel free to jump around to different chapters for things that you're interested in to get a little bit more information.
The top place to go visit while you're in Cairo is the Great Pyramids of Giza. We just got to the Pyramids of the Giza and we're gonna go check them out. This area is the Pyramids of Giza, and it's actually made of 3 pyramids, the Great Pyramid and then 2 smaller pyramids. The Great Pyramid is the biggest of the Egyptian pyramids, and it was built in the 26th century. It is the 7th wonder of the world. The large pyramid contains blocks that are over 250 tons apiece. And the giant pyramid is composed of over 2,300,000 stones. It was pretty amazing to see the Great Pyramid in person. I was surprised how big it was and how big the blocks were. While you're visiting the Great Pyramid of Giza, I recommend taking a walk inside the pyramid.
So we are going to go inside the Great Pyramid. Yay! Super excited. Bucket list item. The Great Pyramid has a few main chambers:
the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber. The area that's open to the public and to hike into is the King's Chamber. When you're walking inside the Pyramid of Khufu or the Great Pyramid, you're walking up wooden planks and also going up ladders and stairs. You end up hiking in the pyramid for about 40 floors. This is approximately 200 feet. They say the pyramid stays at approximately 68 degrees, but it felt way hotter and humid than that. It is definitely a hike, and you do start sweating a lot. One thing to be aware of, it is a small space, so if you're claustrophobic or can't handle going upstairs, I do not recommend doing this. After about 20 minutes, you make it to the end point, which is the King's Chamber. When you get to the King's Chamber, it's pretty small with just 4 smooth sides, nothing super special. I thought it was a really cool experience just being inside the Great Pyramid. While you're visiting the Great Pyramids of Giza, there's a lot of people offering camel rides. We decided to take a ride. These camels look like they're in really good shape and really well taken care of. It was such an amazing experience riding the camel next to the Great Pyramid. It was so picturesque.
That's actually on a camel behind me, out cruising by the Great Pyramids.
Pretty cool, riding a camel in the desert in Egypt with the pyramids. I recommend visiting the Great Sphinx of Giza while you're in the area visiting the pyramids. Instead of walking or driving, we took the camel ride, which was a lot of fun.
The Great Sphinx of Giza is a limestone statue
Of a reclining sphinx, a mythological creature with the head of a human and a body of a lion. This is part of the Giza Plateau on the west bank of the Nile in Giza, Egypt. So we were trying to decide if we wanted to do the pyramid light show. It's about $20 a person. You sit in front of the pyramid and watch the show. We heard the show was a little outdated with the lights and the storyline. So we decided to eat at a restaurant instead, so we could still watch the show and enjoy it, but not have to pay the price. This was a perfect decision for us, but I could see it being a lot of fun with kids sitting in front of the Sphinx watching the show. The next place we recommend visiting is Saqqara, or the Step Pyramid. So we are currently at the Step Pyramid. Saqqara contains the oldest complete stone building complex known in history. It's supposed to be over 4,700 years old, and it's the oldest surviving pyramid, about 200 years older than the Pyramid of Giza. It is used as a burial ground for more than 3,000 years. It is thought the Egyptians built here because underneath the sand in this area they have a lot of sandstone. This allowed them to cut into the stone. Beneath the step pyramid winds an array of tunnels and chambers. In the center, there's a 90-foot or 28-meter shaft. At the bottom of the shaft contains a burial chamber for the king of Djashur. The mummy of the king is gone, but the burial chamber has revealed 32 fragments of the king's granite sarcophagus. We're now heading to the Pyramid of Unos to go explore the inside of this. This is right near the step pyramid. The walls of the descending passage is covered with granite. The passage opens in a small corridor, followed by another horizontal passage. The horizontal passage then opens into an antechamber located under the center of the pyramid. The walls of the antechamber are inscribed with pyramid text. To the east of the antechamber, there is another room, which is the burial room. Here you can see the basalt tomb in the center of the room. Our next stop is to the Imhotep Museum, which is an archaeological museum located at the foot of the Saqqara Necropolis complex. This museum is named for the ancient Egyptian architect Imhotep, who is credited in being the first Egyptian to build a monument structure out of stone. He built the step pyramid located in Saqqara, which is built during the 3rd dynasty. It is a small little museum, but it's really nice, and I recommend checking it out when you're in the area. We're now heading to the Memphis Open Air Museum. Memphis was the birthplace of Egypt as we know it. That's what the sign says. So we are visiting the Memphis Museum. So that's all the different remains. This is an open air museum. The Memphis site is thought to be a place where they built different statues, and they found a lot of them here in different remains. At this site, they have a very large statue of Ramesses the Great. He reigned in the 19th dynasty and was considered a very popular king. He was the only one that said he was also a god. This statue isn't complete, and it was thought because his legs broke off. There's another exact replica of this at a different location. Our next recommendation is to go visit the Egyptian Museum. This museum was built in 1835, and it's an old building. They are building a brand new building at the base of the pyramids. It is supposed to open sometime in 2023. This museum holds over 120,000 items that are all original, except for one, which is the Rosetta Stone. As you walk in, one of the first things you see is a replica of the Rosetta Stone. The original is in the British Museum. The museum is broken up into a few different sections. The first section is the Old Kingdom. In the Old Kingdom, they have a few pieces that are really famous. We have the seated scribe, which is also seen on the 200 Egyptian pound. We have the priest that's made out of sycamore wood. The statue before us, there was 22 of them in front of the Sphinx, and it's made out of extremely hard material that they don't know how the Egyptians cut it. It's almost as hard as diamond. These two statues are considered some of the most beautiful statues in the whole museum. They're from the same age of the Great Pyramid from the 4th dynasty. They're not touched up, and this is the original paint from when they were made. The man has a mustache, and this is one of the most preserved mustaches on a statue that has been found. This is the oldest statue in all of Egypt, and it's over 3,700 years old, and it's from the 3rd dynasty. We're now moving from the Old Kingdom to the Middle Kingdom. This period in history follows a period of political division. The Middle Kingdom is the 11th dynasty to the end of the 12th dynasty. The Middle Kingdom was really small. We're now heading into the Modern Kingdom. This is also referred to as the New Kingdom. This period was from the 16th century BC to the 11th century BC, and it covered the 18th, 19th, and 20th dynasties. It was Egypt's most prosperous time and marked the peak of power. Some of the most popular and famous things to see is King Tut's tomb, along with some of the artifacts that are really preserved, and his mask. Unfortunately, the mask you can't take videos or pictures of, but it's very beautiful, and here's what it looks like. The mask is in a separate room with glass and a guard. Hundreds of tombs and sarcophaguses of high-class people. You just see them all throughout here. They're just everywhere. One thing to be aware of is that there is no air conditioning in this museum and it can get hot, so I definitely recommend bringing a bottle of water. A lot of the famous mummies and sarcophaguses were actually moved to a different museum that was climate controlled. Some of these sarcophaguses are so beautiful with a lot of great designs and color. Some things I thought that were interesting is not only do they mummify Egyptians, they mummified the Romans and different animals such as dogs and birds. We're going to the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization right now. This museum is in Cairo, Egypt. It was opened in 2017. What makes this museum special is it has 22 mummies, including 18 kings and 4 queens from the Egyptian Museum of Cairo, which was moved over here. You could see them, but unfortunately, you can't take any video or pictures. The museum displays a collection of 50,000 artifacts presenting the Egyptian civilization from prehistoric times to the present day. This museum's goal is to educate the visitors about the Egyptian civilization across different key historic phases, first starting with the pre-dynastic and ancient Egyptian periods, which you could see by their underground housing and some of their goods that they used and cooked. The skeleton was found and it was over 35,000 years old and is considered pre-dynasty. It was found in the region of Luxor. We're now heading into the Pharaonic era. As you walk through this era, you see a few really key statues. This is a statue of the engineer who developed the Temple of Hatshepsut. This statue is a man named Habi. He founded the papyrus paper. As you continue through this period, you also see gorgeous sarcophaguses. These ones you could actually take pictures of. Near the sarcophaguses, you could see boxes that hold organs and different statues. These statues were actually found around the king's sarcophagus to help protect the body in the afterlife. Here's some beautiful silver, turquoise, and jewelry from the Egyptian times. They even had jewelry boxes, mirrors, and hair clips. We're now getting to part of the museum where the Egyptian culture and Roman culture is starting to merge together. As you walk through this time period, you have some beautiful statues, you have some textiles that are all woven. You also could see some of the old ancient Roman coins and receipts that they used. As you walk a little farther, you could see beautiful jewelry. We're now heading to the more modern civilization. Here's an Arabic kettle, lights, carpet, and box. This box actually held the old Quran. This is a very beautiful tapestry that has different verses of the Quran in it, and the Quran is in different sections of this piece. This is some of the clothing that they used from ancient time into the modern time and is used all over Egypt. Our next recommendation is to go visit the St. Barbara Church in Coptic, Cairo. The Holy Family went on a pilgrimage to Egypt. This pilgrimage originally started in Jerusalem, went to Egypt, and then back to Jerusalem. The gods told Joseph to take Mary and Jesus Christ to Egypt. This is how they ended up in Egypt on a pilgrimage. It was thought Jesus Christ was about 1.5 to 2 years of age when he came here. The Holy Family stayed in a cave 3 months at the location this church was built on top of. They stayed in the cave about the 1st century, and this church was built at the end of the 4th and beginning of the 5th century. If you look at a lot of the columns around, you could see it's kind of a Greek-Roman style, but all the columns are different because they used the columns from different churches that were demolished to build the actual church. As you walk in, there are some Bibles that are written in Arabic and Coptic. Coptic is one of the last languages used by the Egyptians. Some of the other Bibles are also written in Greek. This is the well that the Holy Family drank from that was near the cave. small little cave. So this is the cave that Jesus Christ and his family stayed in for about 3 months. And he was a little boy, about 1.5 years of age when he stayed here. But you can see the Roman style, look at that. Stone from the cavern's original stone where Jesus Christ lived. So this is the second church that was built in this area. We're going to go to the Hanging Church, which is the first church that was built in this area.
Our next stop is the Hanging Church in Cairo. The official real name is the Church of the Virgin Mary. It resides in Old Cairo. And it's interesting because it was built on top of the southern entrance gate of the Babylon fortress built by the Romans. And the 2 gates were the only thing that remained. This unique location gives the church the impression of being suspended in mid-air. When it was first built, the ground level was several meters lower than it is today, so it really looked like it was suspended.
This is the St. Mary's Church, or the Hanging Church, and it is the first church built in this area.
The current Hanging Church is believed to date back to the Patriarch of Isaac of Alexander, a Coptic pope who held office during the 7th century. Before that, another church existed at the same site, built sometime during the 3rd century as a place of worship for the soldiers who inhabited the Roman fortress. This church makes it one of the oldest places in Christian worship in Egypt. One of the most notable features of the Hanging Church is the ceiling, which is constructed of dome wood and is intended to resemble the interior of Noah's Ark. Also, the marble pulpit, which is supported by 13 marble columns intended to represent Jesus and his 12 disciples. As you're walking through the church, there's different areas where you could see through the ground so you can notice how the church is suspended. It's 9.5 meters above the ground and 18.5 meters wide.
So if you look below, there's like restored wood, and then below that, like right there, is palm trees, which is original palm trees that they used to build the church over the 2 towers. You can see it goes really deep. This is the oldest mosque in Egypt.
This is the Mosque of Amri al-Valaz. This mosque was built in 641 to 642 AD and is at the center of the newly founded capital of Egypt. The original structure was the first mosque ever built in Egypt and the whole of Africa. For 600 years, the mosque was also an important center for Islamic learning.
So right there, so that is the minaret, and it's the 2nd tallest one in Egypt, and it's the tallest dome in a mosque in Egypt.
Through the 20th century, it was the 4th largest mosque in the Islamic world. The location of the mosque was the site of the tent of the commander of the Muslim army, General Ammar of Al-As. Unfortunately, this mosque has been demolished and destroyed and rebuilt so many times, they don't actually know what was in the original structure. The present mosque is a 19th century reconstruction that still preserves design elements and ornamental works from various periods of the building's history. The rebuilt mosque is a prominent landmark and can be seen in what today is known as Old Cairo. We're now heading to the House of Prayers, which is the main section of the mosque. This mosque was rebuilt in 1246 AH, and it's the Mosque of Muhammad Ali.
We're in a mosque.
We're in
The Alabaster Mosque.
And look at the ceiling. It's amazing. It has like a really pretty dome, and it's all colorful.
This dome is a wooden dome, and it is painted, and it is one of the highest domes in Egypt, and it is supported by 4 circular domes and columns to keep it from falling in. This newly constructed mosque is made out of alabaster stone, which you could see in the columns and the walls. Outside of the mosque, you have a gorgeous view of the city of Cairo, and you could kind of see the pyramids in the distance through the smog. We're next going to go explore Muizz Street, which is the main street in historic Cairo. It is one of the oldest streets in and one of the best open-air museums in Egypt. This was considered the most important artery in the city and was previously called the Quashaba. It formed the main axis of the city's economic districts where its markets were concentrated. It also has the greatest concentration of medieval architectural treasures in the Islamic world and has some of the most important monuments in Islamic Cairo.
So we're currently in the Egyptian market or bazaar. It's over 600 years old. It's the original one that they had. It's the oldest market in Egypt. And they have food, spices, clothing, gifts, pretty much anything you want to buy, you can get here. They have even the local Egyptian clothing.
Our next stop is in Islamic Cairo, and we're going to go visit the complex of Sultan al-Mansur, Qalawun.
So this is a complex. So you have the dome, you have the mosque, you have the school, and you have the hospital. So now we're gonna go towards the mosque.
The complex is considered the best Islamic monument in all of Egypt. This complex has a mixture of different civilizations. It was a mosque, but it was a basilica style like a church.
So this is the Sun's Mosque on the same complex.
This complex holds the second most important shrine dome in all the world, second to the Taj Mahal. The dome was significant because it was a ceremonial center for the new Muslim rulers, and it became a symbol of power and changing of the guard. At this time, they're redoing the dome.
So this is the mosque, and this is the school part. This is the old hospital. Right here was the bath, and these were all the hospital beds right here to get well. Steam room. We're in a bath, an old bath. Private baths.
This was a fun complex to visit and very different than any of the other places we visited in Cairo. While you're in Cairo, something that's very common is to see papyrus paper art. We went to a papyrus paper gallery and they taught us about how papyrus paper was made. Papyrus paper is the first paper that was made by the ancient Egyptians. The papyrus plant is special because if you turn it upside down, it looks like sunbeams, and the stem is special because it's a triangle shape. The triangle shape looks like a pyramid, which is a symbol of eternity. To make the paper, you cut the stem to the size you want. Then you remove the green covering, which isn't used. And in ancient times, they used them for baskets. The inner bark is cut into thin pieces, and it's filled with a lot of water and sugar. So they then use the mallet to get rid of the water. And then use the rolling pin to get the rest of the water out. Between two pieces of carpet, then you take the material and layer horizontal and vertical and alternate until you get a sheet. The paper is then put under a press or stones in ancient Egyptian time, and you let it sit there for over 6 days and start drying. You then get the final product of paper, which is very strong, waterproof, and wrinkle-proof. After learning about the process of how papyrus paper was made, we wandered around the shop and looked at all the beautiful artwork that was painted and written on this papyrus paper. I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the top things to do in Cairo, Egypt. Join us next week as we take you on a cruise up the Nile River. If you enjoyed our video, we would really appreciate if you press the like button and subscribe below to follow more of our adventures.